Hey everybody, Crow back again with another Williams Pinball Censored video where I look at the difference between the censored and uncensored versions of the tables in the Williams Pinball arcade packs in Pinball FX3. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Universal Monsters table pack, which includes the Creature from the Black Lagoon and Monster Bash. Now, before I dive into these tables, I just want to mention up front that if you're wondering why things were censored, I do have a video up for that. It's the first video in this series, which I numbered 0, which was kind of an introduction to this whole thing, and it explains why Zen Studios had censored these tables. If we look at the legal resources screen in the game itself, it says, while painstakingly trying to keep the experience of playing these classic pinball tables as authentic and as close to the original as possible, in order to meet our age rating obligations, we were compelled to tone down or adjust the following pertinent contents of the table. They're censored on consoles, but on the PC you have the option to turn that censorship off. So what I've done is, since I play on the PC version, the Steam version, I compare the same tables with the family mode on or off, which is in essence turning the censorship on or off. Now you could argue whether or not they actually needed to make these changes, or why didn't they just release a whole new game with a higher rating. That's really all up for argument, discussion, and we're really not going to focus on that here. Well, all I want to talk about is what those changes are, because I find them interesting. But before we move on to the Universal tables, I kind of want to do an addendum to a previous video. When I talked about Hurricane, a lot of people did point out there were certain changes that I missed. But the fact of the matter is that there were so many changes on that table, there was no way I was going to see everything. And the additional changes that I missed, for the most part, are exactly the same as the same changes that were repeated throughout the table, like women's cleavage being removed. And that's pretty much it for what I missed. So I'm not really going to focus in on that. That took me forever anyway. So let's just move on right now to the Universal Monsters table pack. We're going to start with Creature from the Black Lagoon. Alright, so here we are, starting out by looking at the back box from Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. This is the censored version. There were 3 changes that I found on this back box. So let's start with the first one by zooming in on the woman that the Creature is holding. And if you've watched the previous censored videos, you could probably guess what has changed. So let's pull in the uncensored version, and we can see that her bathing suit was changed to a dress. So again, this is a change that I think maybe just going a little bit overboard. Is it really necessary that we can't see women in swimsuits? Is that something not appropriate for somebody that's 10 years old? I mean, I think that Zen Studios might be playing it too safe with this kind of change. But let's move on to the next thing. Back on the back box again. This time, let's zoom in on this lady in green. The Creature's about to grab her, but something else already got to her. So let's pull in the uncensored version, and we can see that, again, she had a very nice one-piece swimsuit there, and they changed it to be more conservative. This change is kind of a tragedy, in my opinion. Wow, they just kind of really just took out all the sex appeal out of that, didn't they? Anyway, let's move on to the next change. All right, looking at the back box again, and what's funny is that this change didn't even show up in their listed changes. It's just something I noticed. But let's zoom in on the Gillman as he's jumping from the boat. Something very unusual about this. Where is that glow coming from? But let's pull in the uncensored version. We can see that in the original version, the Gillman is on fire, and that's where that glow's coming from. I just think it's kind of funny how they had to just remove the fire because the immolation is not age appropriate, apparently, even though he's a monster, but whatever. I mean, what was the Creature from the Black Lagoon rated anyway? I'm going to look that up really quick. Okay, would you believe it? I just looked it up, and the movie's rated G, meaning they could just air this on TV. That's actually a scene from what happened in the movie. So apparently it's okay for kids to see this kind of thing on TV in an old black and white movie, but we can't see it on the back box of a pinball machine. That just seems utterly bizarre to me. Let's move on. Alright, so here we are looking at the center of the playfield. Let's zoom in on this lady that the creature's grabbing for. I bet you already know what this change is, so let's pull in the uncensored version. We can see that her swimsuit was changed to a dress. This is a real tragedy because it is right in the center of the playfield. You're going to be looking at this all the time. So if you're playing this on a console, I feel for you, but man, that's why PCs exist, I guess, so you could play it without the censorship. Let's move on. All right, here we are looking at that giant loop ramp, whatever it is. So let's zoom in on the woman in white there who's swimming around. Again, this is the censored version. You already know what's coming up, so let's just pull in the uncensored version. You can see that her swimsuit was modified into what looks like a modified pillowcase. That's just kind of bizarre, the change there. But again, this one is not that bad because I think it's just so small, but it is kind of a weird change. But still, it's kind of a disappointing change. Again, it's something basically almost all these changes I don't even think were really necessary because of the ESRB rating. But who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong. Let's just move on to the next change. All right, here we are looking at the same area in the playfield as the last one. And when I was comparing these images, I found a change that wasn't even listed in the list of changes in the documentation when you look into it in the game. But let's zoom in onto this guy here that's saying, hey, move your car. And you know what? Let's pull in the uncensored version because I found out that in the uncensored version, he had a cigar. Again, this is just a change that's very minor. Very small, and it is being covered up a lot of the times from kind of your normal playing view, so it's kind of change that you might not even notice. But again, if you watch these previous censored videos, you know that anytime anybody's smoking a cigar, a pipe, or a cigarette, it's been removed, and that is the case here as well. So let's move on to the final change I found in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Alright, so the final change in the notes for Creature from the Black Lagoon says that on the DMD, various dot matrix animations with pertinent content. And what that means is they changed something in the DMD, maybe one thing, maybe multiple things, but they're not exactly spelling out what it was. So I actually played quite a while in Censored and Uncensored and compared a lot of footage because I thought, oh, maybe the girl's dress that needs to be rescued was altered, and that's not the case. Maybe something with move your car was changed. Not that I can tell. And then all of a sudden I remembered, you know what? There is a video mode in this game where you have to fight a peeping Tom. And so I looked into it, and so the mode looked like this. Okay, if you hit this guy 17 times within the time limit, he gets knocked out. Now, that's not what was changed. What was actually changed was the little hidden secret that happens. If you knock him out and hit the flippers, then you can actually perform a fatality on this guy, as seen here. And that's pretty damn gory for a dot matrix display, so I can understand why this was just completely removed out of the censored version. You cannot do this in the censored version at all. And it doesn't really affect anything. I don't think you get any points for doing that, but it's a cool little trick. It's just unfortunately that you can't do it in the censored version. So that's all I have for Creature from the Black Lagoon. Let's move on to Monster Bash. Alright, here we have Monster Bash, and as usual, we're going to start on the back box. So let's zoom in on the drum set here. We see monsters, and it's kind of got this splash of magenta color around the text monsters. But let's pull in the uncensored version, and we see it was more of a red, bloody color. And presumably, I think this is just going to be a common theme you're going to see here for Monster Bash is just the removal and cleanup of blood or changing it to something else. In fact, this is kind of a subtle change in a way, because I would expect them to change the blood to a completely different color like green or something, but it could still kind of be blood in a way in the censored version. In fact, I had to just double check just to make sure this is really the change, and yeah, that's the change. So Let's move on to the next thing. All right, we got one other change on the front of the back box for Monster Bash. So let's zoom in on the girl that the Gill Man is carrying. And if you saw the first part of this video, you could probably guess what was changed. Let's pull in the uncensored version. I don't know if that's supposed to be a swimsuit or not, but you could definitely get a better view of her cleavage in the uncensored version. But if you're playing on consoles or you're playing in family mode enabled, then no cleavage for you. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, for this one, we've got to be looking at the side of the machine. More specifically, let's zoom in on the top of the side of the back box where it says Universal Studios Monsters. And let's pull in the uncensored version. You can probably guess what it is already, but again, that more magenta colored or purplish magenta colored splotch there was originally like a red splotch, presumably supposedly blood. Again, I don't know why that was changed. You could just say that's a red splotch and not necessarily blood, because it's not really coming from anywhere. But again, I guess Zen Studios just wanted to be safe than sorry, changed this color from this bloody red to more of a magenta. Again, it's the side of the table. This one's not that big of a deal because you really only see this during the flyover demo of the table. You don't really see it during gameplay at all. So who knows? Let's just move on to the next thing. All right, here we are looking at the apron of the table. This is the censored version. And what I'm going to do now is kind of overlay the image of the uncensored version and kind of swipe back and forth so you can see the differences. We're going to start that now. And you can see that the apron originally had all this blood. It was all dripping down and everything. And they kind of just changed it to this generic green slime in a way. So yeah, it's just another removal of blood. The very elongated drips of blood around Monster Bash have been removed completely. Yeah, this one's actually quite annoying because you see this apron in a lot of the camera views while you're playing, so it's just something that's right in your face that doesn't seem right. So yeah, that's kind of an annoyance if you're forced to play the censored versions of these tables. Let's move on to the next thing. So now we're looking at the playfield, but let's focus in on this woman that's swimming around the Black Lagoon. And again, if you've seen the first part of this video, you already know what has been changed. So let's pull in the uncensored version. And she had a much better looking swimsuit previously. Now she's kind of wearing this weird outfit with shorts. That's kind of a weird thing to be swimming in. I mean, again, we're looking at something that has regressed all the way back to the 20s, I think. I think that's what they had to wear in the 20s. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. All right, now we're looking at the center of the playfield, but we're going to zoom in on Frankenstein's head here. What has possibly been changed here? Well, let's pull in the uncensored version. You can see that in the original, he had a little bit of blood in his head. You know, seeing as how he was hastily put together, you'd expect a little bit of blood. But nope, Dr. Frankenstein was a little bit neater in his creation in the censored version. So no blood in the censored version on Frankenstein's head. Let's move on. All right, next we're looking at the flipper area. So let's zoom in on the eyeball where it says alive again. What has been changed here? Well, let's pull in the uncensored version. We see alive again used to be dripping with blood, but they didn't change the color of it, but instead they just kind of removed the drips of blood to make it seem less like blood, because apparently we can't have blood in our monster table, at least for the kiddies. And anybody who plays on console. You're not allowed to see this blood. Let's move on. All right, here we are near the upper part of the playfield. So let's zoom in on the image of Frankenstein on the slab. And this is the censored version. And this one actually took me a while to figure out because all the notes say is removed pertinent items near the body of Frankenstein. I'm like, what does that even mean? And which Frankenstein? Because there's also the model of Frankenstein. But I did find out it is this Frankenstein. Now let's pull in the uncensored version. And even comparing side by side, you might not be able to tell right away. But if you look closely, the uncensored version of Frankenstein's body here has kind of like veins that are coming out of the arm and leg sockets. I mean, there's all this dismemberment, which I was shocked to see they allowed in the censored version. But what they did was take out the veins or darken them. They pretty much darkened the veins. So I was just thinking, well, maybe the image quality is just different. But nope. For sure, they just blackened the veins so they're less red to make it a little less gory. But honestly, this is something I barely could even tell. So this one is just up in the air why they even bothered. And that's all I'm going to say about this one. Let's move on. All right, the next note on the list has to do with voiceovers, where it says that various voiceovers with pertinent content probably have been removed. It doesn't say changed or removed, but what they normally do is if somebody says something that they consider not appropriate for 10 ages or up, they just remove it. And I played this for a while, and I only found one thing I'm pretty sure was removed, and it's when the Bride of Frankenstein says this.
La la! I hear he's got a monstrous orgy.
Now, I played this a bunch in the censored version, and she never said that line. That doesn't mean that it's really not in there. That's the difficult thing about this, is that I can't be 100% sure that it actually has been removed because I didn't hear it, because it's a random thing anyway. I just might not have heard it. But that's the only thing I could tell that is not in the censored version if I had to pick one thing. Now, are there more voiceovers that were removed? There could be. I just don't know. So let's move on to the last thing in Monster Bash that was censored. All right, the last change in the notes for Monster Bash is actually exactly the same as the last note in the change for Creature from the Black Lagoon, as it just says that in the DMD, various dot matrix animations with pertinent content. And that means they were either removed or changed. And it doesn't say how many. It could be 1, it could be 5. I don't really know. All I can tell you is that I did find one for sure that was changed. And we're going to look at the censored version of that right now. What we're looking at is an animation that has been slowed down 50%, where it's just Frankenstein just standing there and all of a sudden flames come up. And this is when you activate It's Alive, which is Frankenstein's mode, and it's multi-ball. And every time you hit Frankenstein, this animation pops up. Well, it does in the censored version. But let's put in the uncensored version, and you can see that he's really getting nailed with a fireball and being immolated. And again, this is 50% speed, just so you can see a little bit better. But yeah, it was just altered to what you see on top for the censored version. Because apparently we can't have anything being set on fire, even if it's a monster. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed, but again, if you're concentrating on the table, you might miss it entirely anyway. But yeah, just the final change. Can't have immolation. And let's wrap up this video. And that's it for Creature from the Black Lagoon and Monster Bash. That was everything I could find. If there was anything that you knew of that I didn't put in this video, you could let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll have an addendum in a future video. Other than that, it's the end. If you liked the video, I would recommend liking the video. And if you did like the video and you're not yet subscribed yet, I would recommend subscribing. I have plenty of videos like this. Got 4 other censorship videos. I don't even know how many now. and there will be more videos to come. And if you're interested, I have been streaming on Twitch more. Check out Crow Pinball on Twitch. And that's all I have. Thanks for watching.